Hiya guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro Adventures. The end of another week, the end of another poll. We've got a fantastic win for City of Angels for Twilight 2000. Now as usual, I'll cover that on the desktop in a wee second, and I'll be back at the end of the video with some other channel related stuff and some other poll related stuff. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to talk about my Patreons, who this week I have been told that they know that war never changes. Although that's a completely different franchise and I shouldn't really be mentioning it. But anyway, honestly, these are great people who allow me the freedom to make the videos that I want to make, rather than being reliant on what's going to be popular on the YouTube algorithm. And that freedom is something I can only thank them from the bottom of my heart. I so much appreciate it. Now if you'd like to join them and help support the channel, and I sure wish you would, or you'd like to see these videos a week early, or you'd like to gain access to one of the other levels of patronage we've got, now we've got Patreon in the description down below. If you check it out, it would be very much appreciated. But anyway, let's have a look at City of Angels. So, this is City of Angels, which is for Twilight 2000. It came out in 1989, and it's by 3W, which is something I didn't notice at first. In fact, I'd read through the entire adventure, thinking it was just a normal Games Designers Workshop adventure. You know, the cover looks fairly on spec, it's got the proper logo on it, and generally it seemed like a Twilight 2000 adventure like any other. It wasn't until I'd read through it, preparing for this video, that something just felt wrong. And it was then that I found the 3W logo and I realised it's a licensed product instead of being by Games Designers Workshop. And we'll come to why it's slightly different to other adventures. But first, let's have a look at the back cover. So, City of Angels. Ever since the world as we knew it ended, people have been saying that chivalry is dead. They've been saying it for a long time anyway, but this time they're sure. No one does anything for any motive except survival. Dog eat dog, survival of the fittest, might makes right. I've heard all those cliches and more, and I refuse to conform to them. Lieutenant Jimenez wanted me to take his St. Christopher medal to his folks in LA. No reward, no treasure at the end of the road, just a favour to a friend. That's all. I promise to do it, and I will. City of Angels is a module for use with Game Designers Workshop's World War III role-playing game Twilight 2000. The adventure takes place near the blasted ruins of Los Angeles area of Southern California. The story revolves around the obligation of one of the players to an old commanding officer. Living up to his promise thrusts him, along with his companions, into a journey through the hardest hit areas of the nuclear exchange of World War III. The group must contend with the harsh realities of post-holocaust life, complicated by rival gangs warring over territories in what was once known as the City of Angels. Information presented in this module includes source material and maps for the LA and Orange County areas, an overview of Southern California, and optional rules which include civilian character generation. City of Angels can be run on its own or easily adapted to fit in an existing campaign. Which is kind of true. Obviously, if your player characters are still in the Europe area of operations where the role-playing game is initially set, then this adventure is way out and you couldn't really run it at all. Unless you renamed everything and made it Gangs of Paris or something while you're still in Europe. But a lot of the later adventures in Twilight 2000 involved the players getting back to North America. The big aim of the game is to get home and find out what happened there. So you get back, and this fits very nicely into that. You're back, you've got an obligation to a former commanding officer who's passed away in the military operations in Europe, and you're going to deliver the St. Christopher to his family. A games master could set that up very early in the campaign and have it pay off much later, having it a long-term goal, which would make this a very nice adventure indeed. Inside, the production quality is quite nice. As I said, I didn't really notice any difference from Games Designers Workshop stuff. It's laid out very clearly. There's not too much artwork in it, but what is of decent quality. Anyway, we've got an introduction, referees notes, and design notes, where what they were thinking about when they were designing the adventure. Then we've got the adventure plot. Now, normally in a Twilight 2000 adventure, you will get a very brief run over the plot, which is what the aims of the players are, and how it's generally expected that they will achieve them. And then the rest of the book is setting up the area. You know, the people they'll meet, the various forces, towns, people they will meet across the area, the places they will go into, just all the challenges that sets up as a very open world. They can approach it in different ways. They might join trade caravans or whatever to achieve their end goal, which is set up. Now, this briefly goes over the adventure, in memory of a brother-in-arms. It talks through, this is probably read out to the player, or the player reads it out to the group, explaining what happens, that he's got this St. Christopher medal, and he's got to deliver it to his former commanding officer's mother in Los Angeles. Tracing her letter to the small town of Hodge takes the characters past the fields of the community in Newbury. They reach Oro Grande, and they discover that it's been raided. The snipers are from the Radrats, a group that kidnapped Mrs. Jimenez's daughter and granddaughter, causing her to go to LA and find them. Then they track them down into the Radrats' hideout, going into LA and making a few encounters there. But the Radrats have been raided by another gang, the LA Raiders, who have taken her. Or they claim they've killed her and taken the other two women. So the players will attack the Raiders. But when they defeat them, they will find out that the Radrats actually set it up. They wanted military help taking out a rival gang, and it was the Hollywooders who'd actually taken the women. So the players then have to go and do the same again. But they get caught up with the Flying Circus, who are cannibals. There's confusion, the women are lost again, and they have to track them down, until eventually there's a large battle as people turn up from the original town to aid the players in a final battle and offer them a position within their community that they're setting up between different settlements in the area. They're forming a new government. So that's the layout of the adventure, and that's what I'd normally expect. I expected the rest of the book to be setting it up, but apart from, we've got a section here on Los Angeles, what the environment, what encounters, random encounters you can get, animal encounters, encounters with people, survival. Then we've got a section on the forces of Los Angeles. So we've got the Mexican army who's come up over the border, including various forces which have captured the city. We've got the gangs, how to deal with them. We've got the different gangs, the LA Raiders, the Radrats, the Hollywooders, the Flying Circus, the Brighton River Reavers, Sunset Beach Boys, Seal Beach Girls, Reseda Benditos, and the Mass Riders. And then we've got different communities. But that's all the world building we get, where I really expected it to take up the rest of the book. Because then we're on to a much more traditional adventure. Now, this is nice. I do find that the open world nature of Twilight 2000 Adventures gives you a lot of work to do as a games master, but they are what take a fairly thin booklet of an adventure and turn it into weeks and weeks of play, whereas this is fairly streamlined, follow A to B to C, etc., till the end of the adventure. Anyway, we've got detailing outside LA. As they encounter the settlement of Oro Grande, they meet the mayor. Inside the settlement, it gets attacked. Then they get the information on what's happened, that the Jimenez daughter and granddaughter have been kidnapped, that the mother went after them into Los Angeles. So the players head into Los Angeles. We've got the various terrain as they move through the city, different encounters, an attack by Molotov cocktails, until they reach the Radrat's nest. But we will rejoin that in a second, because now we've got a bunch of maps. So we've got Newbury, a fire trap encounter, Oro Grande, the settlement of Devore, a large map of Greater Los Angeles, a map of Southern California, along with a couple of character record sheets for some reason. We've got the amusement park tunnel, where the Radrats stay, the Hollywooders hideout, which is a film studios, and we've got a map of the Flying Circus, who are in a high-rise tower on the 10th floor. Anyway, comes back to the tunnel rats, explaining going down into the tunnels, encountering them, escaping a flame trap, and meeting up with the leader, who explains that they've been raided by this other gang, the LA Raiders. When asked about Mrs. Jimenez, the rats remember her. She was the old lady that came to live with her daughter. When they joined the rats, she got sick and died within a month. So they claim she's dead. But they've got the daughter and granddaughter to rescue, so the players go on after the raiders. If they try and bargain with them, because they see that they've got various weapons and armoured vehicles, they get captured. Once beyond the sight of their fellows, any negotiators are captured. Since US helmets have integral half-kilometer radios, the other characters are very likely to know the next development. The negotiators are surrounded and disarmed. They get taken to the commandant, who I think is basing his look on somebody, but will not go any further, and the players have to go and search and rescue to save their fellows. There's layout of the building where they're being held in devoir. Then they discover that the women aren't actually there, they're being held by the Hollywooders. So they have to move on. So they head to Hollywood. It's a stage and film sets and all that. They meet Hedy Tran is the leader of the Hollywooders. They enter negotiations, challenge of champions, where they have to fight the Hollywooder champion, until they get attacked by a cannibal gang, the Flying Circus, who kidnap the Jimenez women. So the target of your rescue is taken even though you've just achieved it. So you have to track them back into the Rad Zone, track down the Flying Circuses, get involved in combat with them, and that's when people from the original town turn up and help the players, leading to you rescuing the women and the masked riders, who are this group from the original town and nearby settlements who are forming a government, make the offer for you to join them. You seem like decent people, so Carl sent us after you to guard your rear. Your expertise and equipment are too valuable to allow in gang hands. Join us and help us restore order to the States. Or they could join Milgov, or they could leave the state, and there's various other alternatives. And the last few pages, well, we've got a page here on civilian characters in Twilight 2000. Obviously, if you're based in in North America now, you won't always be playing military. You can recruit people from the civilian population if players die off and need replacement characters. So this is some rules on how to create a civilian, a survivor of the Twilight War. And over the page, we've got some optional rules, including things like scope sights, oversight crossbows, shotgun under-rifle mounts, grenade launchers, recoilless rifles, lots of stats for those, and that is it. Now, as I said, in a returning to the United States campaign, you could set this up a long time ahead, with the St. Christopher getting passed on to a player, and them eventually going on to fulfill their promise to their dying colleague. But that's relying on that character surviving. Other than that, it's kind of a bit rubbish to drop the players in and say, oh, by the way, this happened before, you made this commitment, you were involved in this battle. Now, a player can take that on board, but as I said, I think it'd be a lot better for the games master to queue it up ahead of time. Apart from that, it's a very linear adventure. You know, you are just going from place to place, following the clues until everything's completed, and then a large group of people come to your rescue. It's not terribly imaginative, but there's quite a lot to like in here. It's fairly cool, and I could definitely imagine running it with a modern version of Twilight 2000 if your campaign has taken the players home. So that was City of Angels, and that won the poll this week with some 34% of the vote, which actually really surprised me, and I don't know why. Because I put all of these into the poll because they'd lost before, and I really wanted to cover one. But for some reason, out of all of these, City of Angels surprised me the most. And I have no idea why, because Twilight 2000 obviously is a pretty big title which has been relaunched recently. So, out of all of them, I probably should have expected it the most. Now in second place, we've got The Perfect Warrior for the Street Fighter RPG on 25%. And then in joint third position on 18% was Your Own Private Idaho for Price of Freedom, and the Utati Asphet Eye of Wicked Sight for Call of Cthulhu, both of which would have been great to cover. I'm especially wanting to cover Price of Freedom again sometime soon, as I do love that game. But in last place was The Medellin Agent for Millennium's End, which came in on only 6%. And I'm going to keep putting Millennium's End in the polls, because I do absolutely adore that game, and I want to get it more coverage. It's really worthy. But 6%, I think I'm going to be putting them in the polls for a long time. But anyway, they're all wiped out the poll, and we're going back to a retro RPG poll. And first up, we've got the California Free State book for Shadowrun, which came out in 1996. Now obviously this covers California, and by the time of Shadowrun there's been some big changes. There's been an invasion by Japan, so there's lots going on in this book, and it'll be fascinating to have a look through it. Second up, we've got World Book 8 Japan for Rifts. Now Rifts is always a good time, but this is Rifts and it's Japan, so there's giant mecha, there's loads of wonderful stuff to have a look through in this book. Third up, we've got the Shipbuilder's Manual for the Babylon 5 RPG 2nd edition, which came out in 2006. Now this is a book which is a contribution to me. A friend gave it to me when he was clearing out his collection, he was moving house, and I don't know much about it. But it's a shipbuilder's book, there's usually fantastic stuff in here, and I'd really love to have a look through it. We've got Road Warriors for Deadlands Hell on Earth. Now, this is the post-apocalyptic cowboy game Hell on Earth, absolutely great game, and this is the Mad Max book. You know, road warriors, fighting in cars, all that kind of stuff. It'd be fascinating to have a look through it. I remember loving it when I bought it. And finally, we've got Arcane Mysteries Bar Save for Earthdawn, which came out in 1997. Now, Earthdawn I've raved about in the past. It's one of my favourite fantasy settings, a sort of post-apocalyptic Fallout type fantasy setting where the races are all coming out of magically projected cares, sort of dungeons underground, after there's been this huge threat which has destroyed the surface of the planet. And they are trying to reclaim the world, and there's still magical threats around, and there's people trying to seize territory. It's a really, really interesting setting. The races are completely different, and magic is really bound into the game. So it'd be wonderful to have a look through this, along with some of the other books sometimes. It's always a good time to have a look through them, and if it wins, let's have some fun looking through it. But anyway, that's in your hands now. So what else have I been up to? Well, over on DrivethruRPG, I've been releasing pirate player character classes. Now this is part of my long-term goal to come up with a campaign setting where people from across times and realities can all come together to adventure. But I'm fleshing out the classes at the moment. So I started off with Victorian, we've gone through modern horror, we've gone through cyberpunk, we've gone through the Wild West, we're on Pirates of the High Seas at the moment. I've got some sci-fi ones that I'm planning up, and after that I'm currently doing research on biopunk, because some really interesting stuff in that. And I'm looking forward to stretching my mind around creating player character classes for a biopunk setting, with the idea that they will all come together and adventure together at the end. But if you're interested in seeing these, obviously they're over on DrivethruRPG. I'll put a link in the description down below. And of course they're available on a shared Google Drive for Patreons of Librarian and Laird status. So if you join the Patreon at one of those levels, you get access to the Google Drive and you get access to all of these, about 400 different booklets now. Lots and lots of stuff I've put together over the past couple of years. And over on RPG Gamer, well, I'm still making my way through the KOTOR comic book series from around about 2005-2006. I'm absolutely loving it. There's so many good ideas in here. And of course, there's the Acolyte series being broadcast on Disney+, and I'm working my way through the reviews of those, and I'll be doing stats for them later. But I'm loving that series as well, even though through all the controversy. But anyway, I've been wittering on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.